Let's talk about some horror books I read over the last 3 months. Yes, I'm back. I do read. I still read. Maybe slowly, but I'm still doing it. I kicked off the year with the juggernaut of the horror genre by finishing Stephen King's The Stand. This is a book I started last December, put down. I was like, I don't know if I can do this. But I picked it up December, finished it in January, and I feel very accomplished. This book is like 1,300 pages. It's one of the longest books I've ever read. It's damn good, okay? I get it. I will never reread it. I don't know how people do that shit. For those of you who don't know, The Stand is a story about this virus that wipes out most of the world's population, except for a select few. And in this book, we're following those different groups of people as they navigate to a different location in order to rebuild the world, essentially. We have characters that are considered more good, morally good, where they're having visions from this woman named Mother Abigail, who's this very much saint-like figure. And we also have these characters having visions from this guy named Randall Flagg, who is evil. This book, like all Stephen King books, is really rich in characters. Like, I didn't think I would remember half the characters, and I fell in love with so many of the different characters, and they do really feel different. Surprisingly, my favorite character in this book was Larry Underwood. When you meet him, he is so selfish and self-centered. He's a mama's boy who doesn't really give a shit about his mother, and we really see him grow over the course of the story, where he becomes my favorite. The first half of this book is so good because you're getting the downfall of society. You're getting to see how this virus spreads and basically destroys the world, and even just like from the first few pages, you see it starts and it's terrifying. And Stephen King is really good at making you care about people you barely know. Like, there's chapters where we see people catch this virus and just how easily it spreads from like contact, somebody who shakes a hand with another person and somebody who wipes their nose, and it's just scary, and it brought me back to the days of COVID. And then there's other chapters where you're learning about how these random people survived the plague, but they died from other random acts, and that chapter is terrifying. The middle half, the second half, it had some really strong parts, but a lot of it was very boring because we're having these characters have committee meetings that are so drawn out. I felt like I was actually in a real-time committee meeting and I wanted to die. Like, they spell it out for you every like single second of that meeting, and I was just like, I can't do it anymore, Steven. And then the last half, where we get this journey where our characters are actually making the stand, all of that stuff was fantastic. The characters are amazing. I don't think it's my favorite of his books, but I do think it was just a really incredible journey. There's some really dark and disturbing stuff in there as well, and I can understand why people like it. After, I felt empty because it's just such a long journey that you're on. It feels like you really are with them on this ride as they're trying to rebuild the world, and it was really good. Old Wounds is a very nice surprise from this year. This one is about two trans teenage girls who are on a road trip across the country, and their car breaks down in rural middle America, and they discover that the people in this town sacrifice teenage girls to a monster in the woods, and they have to fight to survive. I really loved this one because it just balances the social commentary aspect with the horror very well. We're really getting a glimpse into these two lives of these two trans girls and all the real life horrors that they've faced from people rather than monsters. Like, one character whose parents didn't want them to transition, so they're kind of forcing them to be somebody they're not, and just horrifying stuff that they had to deal with from their home life, and that's kind of what sparked them on this journey. And then when they meet these townspeople, the way the townspeople react to them is also really disturbing. They're far more disturbing than the monsters, and that's the kind of horror I really like. It also sparks some questions will this monster want to eat them if they're trans? It's really interesting. There's some really fun moments in this, and it feels like old school horror. And I just really like the characters. I really connected with them. I loved their story, and it was just a really interesting journey, and I am going to read way more from this author. I also read a middle grade graphic horror called Eerie Tales from the School of Screams, and this is about a group of kids who are in class and their teacher asks them to tell scary stories, and each story is different. It's basically an anthology horror, and it leads up to an overlapping story. I thought that the art in this, the illustrations are really creepy and fun, and it almost has a scary stories to tell in the dark vibe to it. It's very light horror. I think it's perfect for younger kids, and it was fun. It was silly and fun. Also read Something in the Walls by Daisy Pierce, and I surprisingly liked this one. So this one is about a young woman who she's just graduated from psychiatry school or something, and she meets this guy in a self-help meeting, and she tells him about how her brother died, and she's been wanting to find out if there's something out there on the other side. She's trying to communicate with him, and this guy has also been trying to communicate with his daughter, and he calls her one day and he's like, hey, I got this situation. I was invited to investigate this young girl who's experiencing this weird paranormal activity in this small town village, and we need a psychologist to come check her out. So she agrees, and they go into this little town and they meet the family, and it's kind of like a Enfield poltergeist situation where she's staying with this family. It's this young girl who's experiencing this stuff, and the parents are just kind of like, yeah, she's, you know, stuff is coming out of the walls, she's acting real weird, she's throwing up, blah blah blah. So they're there to investigate if it's actually real, and the townspeople, they've heard of her and that she can communicate with the dead, so they're like, there's like a crowd outside the house. There's also this creepy little village. It's very folky, and I really liked that aspect where they're investigating the little town and speaking to different people about stuff that has happened. They start to investigate the young girl, what might have caused this strange behavior, and it leads them to interesting directions. This book is not that good. It's really ridiculous at times, but I found it fun and really easy to read. I thought it was predictable where the story goes, but it gets like surprisingly violent towards the end, and I just thought it was a quick, enjoyable read. It didn't focus as much on the paranormal stuff as I wanted it to. I wanted it to be more like The Conjuring 2, but it goes in a different direction. So that's like my biggest gripe with it. Also, it starts with a pregnancy scare, and I was like, I don't know if I can read this, guys. But I pushed through, and I'm glad I did. And I read Birthday Party Demon, which is a really fun novella set in the 90s. It's very pink and just over the top, ridiculous fun. It's about a group of 3 best friends who have a slumber party for one of the friends' 16th birthday party, and they decide to play with the Ouija board and accidentally summon a demon, and one of them gets possessed and the other 2 get sent into a fashion catalog. Think like Delia's, you know, and I thought that stuff was really fun. We're getting to see the characters navigate through the catalog, and they're interacting with the models in the catalog, but there's something off with them, and then one of the other characters is possessed by like the devil, essentially. It is very much a nostalgic romp. It's a throwback to early 90s horror that we all love, and it doesn't bring anything new to the table, and we don't get to know the characters a lot, but I think it is a fun, quick read. It's very enjoyable, and I think that if you are looking to be transported back into the 90s during a summer party, this is the perfect read. Then I've read They Bloom at Night, which is about this small Louisiana fishing town that is hit by a hurricane, and then this red algae kind of takes over everything, and we're following this character and her mother. They're 2 Vietnamese people who are on the fishing boat, and they go out every day, they pull in fish and they bring it to the dock, and this guy who kind of runs, he's like the head of the dock, he will buy stuff off of them, and he's always looking for oddities, and then one day he tells them that he's gonna take their boat boat unless they go out and capture this monster that is killing people, because people have been going missing. So they have to agree because they don't want to lose the boat, and he sends his daughter along with them so that they live up to the deal. And a friendship strikes up between the two teenage girls, and they start to investigate. And they go into this town that's been kind of like almost quarantined off, like nobody can live there, nothing's really surviving, and weird stuff is happening. And it becomes this crazy, like cosmic-y, weird journey. And it's also about self-identity and trauma, overcoming that, and relationships with your family and not living up to their expectations and kind of getting out of their grasp a bit. I thought it was a really interesting story. I wish it was a little bit more of the horror. It's more social horror, I feel like, and I loved the just the setting, the scenario, the atmosphere of this coastal town. It just definitely gave me like Lovecraftian vibes, like Dagon. I don't know if you've seen that movie, but I love that movie. It's based on a Lovecraft story. It's one of my favorites. There are some really gross moments. There's weird body horror in this that I thought was really cool. I think by the end of the story, I was kind of done with it, but I thought the journey was really interesting, and I learned so much. Like, I didn't know about Vietnamese people being a huge part of the fishing community in Louisiana. Then I read The Lamb by Lucy Rose, and this one is a folk horror about a young girl who is living in the middle of the woods with her mother, and they kidnap people and eat them because they're cannibals. And then one day, a stranger shows up on the door and it changes their lives forever. This one starts off so strong. I loved just learning about this young girl and her relationship with her mother and how messed up it is. And I thought it was going to be a story about them kidnapping people and eating them, but once this other woman, this stranger, comes into their lives, the story just kind of settles and it stays there with these three people and how this woman is changing the relationship between the mother and the daughter. They're still doing horrific things, but at the same time, the young girl, she's going to school, she's making new friends, and she's kind of changing her mindset away from everything that she's been raised to believe. Starting to have empathy for people and starting to question eating people, basically. And then the story picks up towards the last act where something happens, and it's just a really dark and disturbing coming of age story. The mother in this story is just awful. She's horrible. The things she says to the daughter, the way she treats her, she's awful. I think that there's some gross body horror moments. There's some really gnarly cannibalism stuff that I was like, yes. I wish there was more of that. It's a slow build to a very bleak but satisfying ending. So I do think in the middle it's kind of a little quiet, too slow for me, but then it gives you a satisfying ending, so it is worth the read. Beautiful writing all around. Then I ended off things by reading The Unworthy by Agustina Bazterrica, and let me tell you, this book is so freaking good. So this is from the same author of Tender is the Flesh. This one is set in a post-apocalyptic world where our main character is living in a convent filled with other women who were known as the Unworthy, and there's other people in the convent above them that are kind of like controlling them. There's this guy who's like the head of everybody, and he's like this figure that they don't really know, and then there's this other sister lady who kind of is like the tyrant, like the military person who like keeps everybody in line. And all the while these women are just behaving horrifically towards each other. They're violent towards each other, they're jealous of each other, and a lot of weird stuff is happening. And our protagonist is telling us all of this through journal entries. So it's basically her talking about what's happening in the present and also her remembering her past. So we get a glimpse of how she got there. Moments of her past, her relationship with her mother, when the world kind of went to shit, and how she tried to essentially navigate through that, and how she ended up at this convent. And then this other woman comes into the convent and she basically develops a relationship with her, and that changes everything for this character, and we really see a lot of her memory come back and her feelings, her humanity come back a little bit. I think that there's some really dark and bleak stuff in this, but there's also some really beautiful moments. Just watching her journey once she meets this new woman, it was just so good. I was devouring every word because it's very beautifully written, but it's also terrifying. It is very bleak. It's got that Handmaid's Tale vibe to it, where you're just seeing this world that doesn't feel so far off in the future. Like, I feel like it's scary when you think of if this certain power comes into place and it oppresses women and our rights and our voices, how scary things can be and how that doesn't seem so far off, like, from reality. That's what made this book even more terrifying to me, and I just love the characters. I liked this a lot more than Tender as the Flesh. It has a more hopeful feeling to it by the end, whereas Tender as the Flesh felt more bleak and hopeless, but I liked this one a lot more, and I really recommend it. It is a quick read, and it is my first 5-star read. I don't give out 5 stars lightly, okay? So love this one, and I think a lot of you will too. And there you have it. Those are all of the horror books I've read recently. I've been struggling to get into another book after The Unworthy because it was just so good, and also I just finished my semester at school, which was a very tough one, so I didn't have a lot of brain capacity to read and enjoy things. I've also just been exhausted. So next on my list is The Haunting in Room 904. I also have Deadstream, which I'm very excited to read because it's described as Sinister meets The Ring. By the way, please, if you haven't done so already, go get a library card, guys. I read most of these books from my library, which means I saved a shit ton of money, and the library is just amazing. It costs nothing to sign up. You get so many access to so many resources, not only books, but DVDs, movies. It's like going to the video store. You can access things on digital like Libby and Hoopla. You can watch movies, Canopy, you can stream movies for free, and they have a nice selection. And also free programming. You can get like seeds out of seed library in the library. You can do so much. And our libraries are under attack, among many other things. So the one thing you can do is get a library card and use your library, because you're a loser if you don't, okay? I'm just kidding, but also I'm not. Just get one, okay? Please, thank you. Thank you for listening to me. Also, I'm in school to become a librarian, if you didn't know, so that's why I'm even more passionate about it. Anyway, thank you so much for watching this, guys. I hope you're having a wonderful time as much as you can. We're almost halfway to Halloween, so my dog is barking. I gotta go. Thank you again for watching. Let me know what books you're reading in the comments down below. Bye!